Faith is your hidden power. What if the strongest thing inside you is something you can't even see? Think about that for a moment. Not your strength, not your intelligence, not your resources, but something deeper. Something quieter. Something that shows up exactly when everything else begins to fall apart. Picture yourself standing in front of the biggest challenge of your life. Maybe it's a loss that broke you, a door that slammed shut without warning, a fear that freezes you in place, or that moment when you look in every direction and see no way out. And yet, something inside you refuses to collapse. A small flame, almost invisible, but still burning. That flame has a name. And today, you're going to understand something most people never fully grasp. Faith is not just belief, it's power. Have you ever felt that invisible push when logic told you to stop? That quiet voice that didn't explain anything, didn't give you guarantees, but simply said, keep going? That's where everything begins. Because faith doesn't show up when life is easy. It doesn't grow in comfort. It is born in pressure. It rises in the exact moment when your mind starts to turn against you, when doubts repeat themselves, when fear multiplies, when uncertainty becomes overwhelming. It feels like you're walking through a dark tunnel with no sign of light ahead. And in that moment, a deeper question emerges. What keeps you standing when everything inside you wants to fall? It's not money. It's not external support. It's not even certainty. It's something more intimate. Something that doesn't make noise, but changes everything. The ability to believe, even when there is no evidence that things will get better. That's faith. Not as a religious idea, but as a living force inside you. A force that activates precisely when everything else collapses. And if you look closely at your own life, you'll notice a pattern. Every time you overcame something difficult, there was a moment where you chose to believe, even if you didn't realize it at the time. So let me ask you something. What has been sustaining you all this time? When no one sees your struggle, what keeps you moving? When you're exhausted, what makes you try one more time? These are not simple questions. They don't have quick answers. But they all point to the same source. Because before any action happens, something deeper must exist. Before you take a step, you must first see the possibility of movement. Before your life changes, you must believe that change is even possible. Everything begins there. And here's where it gets interesting. Most people think faith is something soft, passive, something you wait for. But the truth is the opposite. Faith is active. It's a force. It's a decision. It's choosing to move when there's no clarity. It's choosing to trust when there's no guarantee. It's stepping forward when every part of you is asking for proof. And that's why so many people never access it. They're waiting to feel ready. But faith doesn't require readiness. It requires willingness. Think about your past again. Every victory, every breakthrough, every moment where you surprised yourself, started with belief. Maybe it was small. Maybe it was fragile. But it was there. And that belief changed your behavior, your posture, your energy. When you truly believe something is possible, your entire system shifts. You think differently. You act differently. You become different. That's the power of faith. It reorganizes you from the inside out. There are people who reached the lowest point of their lives. No support. No direction. No visible hope. And still, something inside them refused to shut down. They continued. Not because it was easy. Not because they had answers. But because they had something stronger than logic, faith. And over time, that invisible force began to shape their reality. Because when belief turns into action, things start to move. Doors begin to open. Opportunities appear. Not by magic, but by alignment. Now here's a question you might not have asked yourself yet. If faith is already inside you, how are you using it? Are you feeding it? Ignoring it? Letting it fade? Because faith is not something you either have or don't have, it's something you practice. It grows when you use it. It weakens when you abandon it. It's like a muscle that strengthens every time you choose to trust instead of doubt. What would happen if you stopped asking, "How is this going to work?" and started asking, "Why not me?" What if, instead of waiting for certainty, you allowed yourself to move with belief? Because the truth is, You don't need to see the entire path. You just need to take the next step. That's how faith operates. It doesn't reveal everything at once. It reveals just enough for you to keep going. And something incredible happens when you do. You stop fighting life and start flowing with it. Anxiety begins to loosen its grip. Fear starts to lose its voice. Pain begins to make sense. Not because your problems disappear, but because your perspective changes. And when your perspective changes, your reality begins to shift. Faith doesn't erase your past. It transforms your relationship with it. It takes your wounds and gives them meaning. It takes your setbacks and turns them into preparation. It doesn't promise a life without difficulty, but it gives you the strength to move through anything. And that's what makes it powerful. It doesn't depend on what's happening outside. It works from within. So now, pause for a moment and look inward. What would you do today if you truly believed you could overcome anything? What decision would you make if you knew your faith wouldn't fail you? What step have you been delaying, simply because you've been waiting for certainty? These questions don't need immediate answers. They need honesty, because deep down, you already know. There's a part of you that has always known. A part of you that never gave up, even when everything felt lost. That's the part you need to reconnect with. Because no matter how many times you've fallen, how many times you've doubted, how many times you felt like giving up, faith is still there. Waiting. Offering you another chance. Another step. Another beginning. Faith doesn't require perfection. It requires surrender. It doesn't ask you to be fearless. It asks you to continue. It doesn't demand certainty. It invites trust. And the moment you respond to that invitation, everything starts to change. Your story doesn't shift overnight. But your direction does. And direction is what defines destiny. So if something inside you was awakened while listening to this, don't ignore it. That feeling, that spark, that's your faith calling you forward. And maybe today is the day you answer. If this message resonated with you, take a moment and define what faith means to you right now. One word. Just one. Strength. Hope. Courage. Renewal. Whatever comes from within. Hold on to it. Because that word might not only remind you of who you are, but also inspire someone else who is still searching. And remember this. Faith is not just something you have. It's something that has been carrying you all along.